Today, over 8 billion of us light up the Earth. Machines ferry us through the sky at 35,000 feet. We build towers that rival the clouds and fire rockets beyond gravity's grip. A tap opens endless libraries. A voice wakes entire homes. Sleep, now, is temperature-controlled, algorithm-perfect, and one inconvenience away from a mattress commercial. But rewind the world just 22,000 years, when only around 1,000 humans walked the Earth during the last glacial maximum sleep, was a nightly gamble. Temperatures plunged to -40 degrees. Wind carved skin like knives. Predators circled the camps like shadows with teeth. Fire was sacred. Warmth was a miracle. And sleep hovered between life and death. If you're using these to fall asleep, that's literally why I make them. So, subscribe maybe, and tell me where you are and what time. I check comments, and it's always Oslo at breakfast, Manila at bedtime, Sao Paulo somewhere in between. All at once, the same story reaching everywhere. Picture it. A moonless night on the Eurasian steppe. The wind screams, not howls, but screams across barren tundra, dragging veils of ice through the makeshift shelters of a fragile tribe. Each structure, a crude dome fashioned from woolly mammoth bones, lashed together with sinew, packed tight with mud and hide, is less a home and more a desperate barricade against the eternal freeze. No doors, no windows, just a crawl space and faith. Outside, the temperature sinks to levels that blister lungs. Inside, families huddle beneath layers of fur scavenged over years. No flickering thermostats, no pitches of white noise, just the low, persistent crackle of fire, if it stayed lit, and the breathing of those still alive. Every dawn, frost bites at the edge of eyelids, and not everyone wakes. But those who do know this. To sleep is to risk never opening your eyes again. So they adapted, not once, but over generations, through rituals, innovation, and instincts nested deep within the marrow. This was sleep as survival, and it began with fire. Not just any fire. These were not the crackling fireplaces of cozy cabins or the hissing gas lines of modern flats. These fires were lifelines, born of friction or flint, coaxed awake with patience and prayer. They fed on bone marrow, dried dung, and anything that could burn without poisoning the cave with smoke. Fire was more than heat. It was the center of existence. They built their sleep around it, literally. Families formed sleep circles, placing the oldest and youngest closest to the flame, with stronger adults on the perimeter, forming a human insulation ring. They rotated so no one stayed against the cold for too long. Eyes stayed half open. Sleep came in pulses, shallow and alert. The brain adapted to rest in shifts, always one foot in this world, one in the next. They did not dream often. To dream was to trust the night. And in the Ice Age, trust was earned inch by inch, never given freely. But fire alone was never enough. As the Ice Age deepened, humans turned to the land, the creatures, and even the instincts of those they once hunted. They began to mimic the sheltering behaviors of animals borrowing from bears and wolves who dug into the earth to make dens insulated with layers of moss, fur, and frozen soil. In places where trees were scarce and snow fell like ash for months, they dug into hillsides or drift banks, using the very cold as a barrier against deeper cold. These semi-subterranean shelters held in heat and muffled sound, becoming hushed sanctuaries cut off from the howling void outside. Some engraved the walls with symbols, spirals, animals, ghost-like handprints, as if memory itself could keep the cold at bay. And in these dim, sealed chambers, among whispers of cave soot and the wet scent of musk and earth, families began to sleep longer, deeper, warmer, not safe, never safe, but safer than under the open stars, where death flitted like frost on the edge of breath. Still, The night was never quiet. It creaked with the groans of ice shifting over miles, a language too old for words, too ancient for comfort. Sometimes, in the deepest hours, a distant thunder would rumble beneath the earth, glaciers carving, or entire forests collapsing under the merciless weight of snow. And they heard it. A trembling in the bones, like the world breathing through its death rattle. In those moments, sleep became a ritual of silence. No one stirred. Even children, coached by quiet necessity, learned to lie utterly still, their breath shallow, their wide eyes watching the flicker of flame dance against the cave ceiling. Sleep did not come easy. But when it came, it was a surrender, a release into something ancient and fragile. Each time, they trusted the fire to hold, the shelter to hold, each other to hold, and sometimes that was enough to see another dawn. But even the deepest dens and most sacred flames offered no defense against everything: famine, illness, betrayal. The cold was only one predator in a world of endless threats. There were nights when meat ran out, when the roots and berries harvested in desperate seasons spoiled in a blink. Infants whimpered with nothing left to suckle. Old warriors closed their eyes beside flickering ash and were gone before the wood could catch again. And yet, amidst that suffering unseen from the high perch of history, something vital was kindled. A capacity not just to endure, but to remember, to teach, to pass warmth from generation to generation. Like a hidden ember, stories curled through those frozen shelters like smoke itself. Stories of spirits that walked the wind, of ancestors buried not far, still watching, still warning. Belief became insulation. Myth became medicine. In the dark, they did not just fight for sleep. They dreamed of a world where their children might sleep without fear. And that dreaming was the first spark of civilization. But let us not mistake these early sleepers as mere victims of the cold. Over thousands of years, their bodies transformed alongside their will. Archaeological clues suggest a form of seasonal adaptation metabolisms that slowed in winter, core temperatures that dropped during sleep to conserve energy, much like the bear's torpor. The evidence is scattered, hesitant, but compelling. Studies of ancient DNA hint at genes favoring cold resistance, traits today diminished or lost. Could it be that humans, once drowsed in a semi-hibernative trance, stitched into the night by biology itself? It is a mystery that haunts both archaeologists and evolutionary biologists, tracing the faint rhythms of prehistoric sleep through the fragments of frost-bitten bone and clues buried under millennia of ice. What is certain is this: to survive the Ice Age, humanity did more than light fires or build shelters. They turned sleep itself into a weapon, an adaptation, a sacred intermission between brutal days. And in doing so, they not only slept through the cold, they endured it, carried stories through it, and reawakened as ancestors of a warmer age. In the end, what makes this ancient story so haunting is not just the cold they survived, but the warmth they created in spite of it. A warmth not measured in degrees but in breath shared, in hands clasped tight through the blackness of 1,000 winters. They slept not for comfort but for continuity. Each night endured was a vote of will against extinction, a silent vow to tomorrow. And now, when we curl beneath synthetic quilts in heated rooms, lulled by apps and artificial stars, the echoes of those old rhythms still stir in us. In the quiet moments, when the wind presses against our window panes, or we wake briefly without reason in the darkest hour, perhaps something ancestral stirs. A distant memory of firelight on a cave wall, of sleep kept fragile and sacred, of humanity, half dreaming in the long night, daring to imagine a morning that had not yet been promised. So as we drift into our own nights, wrapped in the luxuries of an era their frozen minds could never fathom, we do so on the bones of their survival. We inherit the instincts of those who once listened to the wind with terror, who learned to sleep beside fire as both shield and shaman. Their cold was not just a backdrop, it was a sculptor, shaping nerve, shaping kinship, shaping consciousness. And though we chase sleep now for performance, for peace, even for pixelated dreams, something ancient remains beneath the surface. A resonance, a reminder, that once, to close one's eyes meant to trust a village, a ritual, a flame. And perhaps that's why, even now, sleep feels sacred. Not because it is a break from life, but because deep in our blood, we remember when it was the fight to keep it. So the next time the night wraps around the world and hush falls over cities and forests alike, know this: sleep is not just rest. It is ritual, inheritance, resistance. We lie beneath ceilings, but they once lay beneath stars. We listen to the hum of climate controls. They listened for growls in the dark. And when we dream, we follow a trail blazed by ancestors who dared to let their guard down when the universe was anything but gentle. The Ice Age did not shatter humanity. It shaped it, one bitter night at a time, through frozen lungs and flickering flames, through the hush of snowfall over sleeping shelters, and sometimes, in the deep quiet of a warm bed, if we listen closely, we just might hear what they once heard, the murmur of ancestors whispering across time. You survived. Now rest. We are still here. And so, buried beneath millennia of ice and silence, the story of how we learned to sleep in the cold becomes not just a tale of survival, but a testament of ancient hope. The Ice Age never asked permission. It came to erase, to freeze, to bury. Yet out of mammoth bone, fire ash, and the rhythm of breath beside breath, a resistance was born that reaches us even now. They found a way to rest in the teeth of the storm, to close eyes in faith when the night had no mercy. That enduring courage melts into our own quiet rituals, into lullabies, into warm milk before bed, into blankets tucked by caring hands. It lingers in our compulsion to feel safe before sleep, to lock doors, to dim lights. Nothing we do is separate from them. Through the spirits they evoked, the stories they told, the shelters they etched into stone, they made something permanent. They made rest possible and sacred in a world that gave them no comfort. And maybe, after all this time, that's the legacy that matters most. Not the cold, not the fear, but the warmth we still carry forward in the act of simply closing our eyes and trusting the night. Yet even in the echoes of those long winters, the question remains, how close did we come to vanishing? The line between extinction and endurance was as thin as the hide stretched between mammoth tusks. Every night survived was borrowed time. Every generation was a fragile victory over the ice. Some scientists believe the human population may have bottlenecked to fewer than 1,000 breeding individuals, scattered in isolated pockets across the tundra and forests. That number is smaller than the passenger list of a single commercial flight. And yet, from those scattered embers, humanity reignited, not through strength alone, but through astonishing adaptability, unity in adversity, and the quiet revolution of shared sleep. In the bleakest chapters of prehistory, it wasn't the strongest who survived, but those who held each other through the cold. And that, perhaps, is our oldest truth, that survival begins in sleep, in shelter, in the breath of another beside us. From ice, we wove the first threads of kinship, and from that kinship came everything. Today, the science of sleep hums with scans and circuits, but the roots still stretch backward through frostbitten centuries and the long quiet of the Ice Age. Researchers now unearth clues in ancient bedding layers, in fire rings blackened with soot, and even in the isotopes of ancient teeth, revealing shifting diets and seasonal behaviors that whispered a lullaby of survival. Sleep was not a luxury coded into brains overnight. It was forged, night by perilous night, in the crucible of a frozen world that demanded everything. And though the cave walls have long since collapsed, and the mammoths have vanished beneath the thawing permafrost, one truth holds steady. The act of sleep is where humanity first learned cooperation, storytelling, protection, the earliest rituals of civilization, whispered in slumber. In the end, sleep was not the absence of action. It was the quietest form of resistance. And every night we rest, warm and dreaming, we echo those ancient sleepers who first taught the world that it is possible to outlast the dark. So what do we do with the inheritance of ancient sleep? We carry it, mostly unconsciously, in bedtime rituals and cultural myths, in the need to feel safe before surrendering to the dark. We design homes to give us the illusion of control, surround our beds with creature comforts, build routines that make us feel less alone in the silence. And in doing so, we reenact something deep and old. Because long before data told us how many sleep cycles we need, humans slept side by side not just to stay warm, but to stay human. The cold forged a kind of intimacy, a communion of trust that would one day evolve into societies, languages, entire civilizations. Behind every flickering firelight and shivering night, a quiet promise was made. Keep each other alive, and maybe someday, someone will remember. And we do, in every bedtime story, in every dream shared in a midnight hush, in every quiet moment before sleep comes, when we still listen, instinctively, for the wind. And perhaps it's no coincidence that some of our most sacred moments still unfold in twilight births under dim lights, farewells whispered bedside, prayers repeated before sleep's edge. Because sleep, at its core, remains a final frontier of trust, a place where we return to being vulnerable, to being mortal, to remembering what it felt like when silence wasn't absence, but sanctuary. The Ice Age didn't end because the cold gave up. It ended because humans outdreamed it. Every flicker of flame in the dark was a refusal. Every shared blanket was an oath. And though we live now in glass and metal, in cities stitched with glowing roads, the same pulse continues beneath our skin. A murmur of mammoth-bone shelters, a whisper of frost-kissed prayers. So tonight, as the world spins quietly beneath countless roofs, maybe someone will pause before sleep and hear it a fragment of breath, ancient and eternal, saying, "Rest." Not because we are safe, but because we choose to be. That choice, made in the coldest places of prehistory, is what made us human. And maybe that's the final inheritance, the real message etched not in stone, but in the quiet breath between beings who chose to stay close through the endless dark. That sleep was never just for rest, but resistance, memory, and meaning. The Ice Age did not just test the limits of the body. It carved the boundaries of soul and story. It asked humanity who it wanted to become, and the answer was whispered. Night after frozen night, in every shelter built, every fire lit, every child rocked to a fragile sleep. We are the children of those answers. Every time we lie down and let the dark come close, we follow the contours of that ancient courage, not with fear, but with reverence. And in that act, quiet, simple, and sacred, we honor those who once huddled beneath bone and hide, staring into flame, dreaming of a dawn they did not know would come. It did. We are the proof. And somewhere deep inside our modern constructs and sterile timelines, the pulse of that Ice Age still beats. In the hush before dawn, in the quiet breathing of a child in sleep, in the crackle of a campfire, or the whisper of snow against a window, we are reminded subtly but unmistakably that the line, stretching from mammoth hide shelters to smart bedrooms, has not broken. It has only evolved. Beneath the threads of the world we've made lies the raw, unyielding strength of the world we survived. The Ice Age did not win, neither did we fully escape it. We carry it still, in our dreams, in our fears, in our need to be near another when night rises. Sleep is a monument built not from stone, but from centuries of defiance. And each time we close our eyes, we step barefoot into that legacy, bold, fragile, full of fire. And so we sleep, not just as animals, but as descendants of survival, stewards of a ritual perfected over millennia of brutality and brilliance. The Ice Age left behind no monuments, no written scrolls, only the breath of stories sealed in bones and soot. But in learning how to rest in the face of extinction, our ancestors penned their legacy into our very biology. Every blink toward sleep is a subtle return, a pilgrim's step back through time, to a fire still burning in memory. That flame, flickering at the cave's heart, never truly went out. It passed through bloodlines, into lullabies and languages, into rituals and rhythms, until it arrived in our bedrooms faint but alive. The earth warmed, the glaciers retreated, civilizations bloomed, but that ancient fire still burns, quiet and enduring, every time we dare to dream, while the dark still watches. And maybe that's the oldest truth we've ever known, that sleep is where time forgets, history remembers, and the human spirit, battered but unbroken, finds its reason to go on. So when we finally ask how humans slept in the Ice Age without freezing to death, we are really asking something deeper. How did they hold on to existence when the world itself tried to unmake them? The answer lies not just in biology or invention, but in communion. They didn't survive alone. They survived together, curled in rings around fire. Wrapped in warmth they made themselves, guarded by the touch of another heartbeat in the dark. Sleep was not rest, it was resilience. It was the first act of trust in a world shaped by peril. And in that shared trust, a silhouette of the future emerged. The long road to now was walked by sleepers who closed their eyes not because the night was gentle, but because they dared to imagine that morning could return, and that more than tools, more than fire, more than strategy, is how we made it. Through the dream of survival, through the echo of breath on cave stone, through sleep, sacred and defiant, inside a world made of ice. Because in the end, survival was never just a question of fire or shelter, it was a question of faith. Faith in each other, in the whispers of a world not meant for them, in the stubborn hope that life could continue even when the earth turned cruel. They transformed sleep from a vulnerability into a vow, a collective promise binding one heartbeat to the next. That promise lingers, wrapped around us like blankets we no longer question, buried in the act of setting an alarm or turning out the light. Ice no longer claws at our shelters, but the need that once shaped our ancestors still moves quietly within us. Sleep is where that need rises to be near, to be remembered, to belong, even when the night outside lasts forever. And if we listen hard enough, not just with ears but with the old instincts that have always stirred in the dark, we might still hear it, the rhythm of our beginnings, wrapped in silence, warm against the cold. And as we reach the end of this long descent into our ancient past, a final stillness rises. The Ice Age is long gone, erased by time's slow thaw, but its fingerprints remain in the echo of our instincts, the architecture of trust built one night at a time. We no longer sleep beneath tusks or mud or downwind of predators, but the fragility of sleep, the mystery of putting the body down and hoping for return, has never changed. It's an act of faith baked into our evolution, a quiet decision to stay human, in a world that rarely guaranteed survival. In remembering how we once slept through razor-edged winters and deathless dark, we don't just understand history, we reclaim a kind of awe. The world was not always lit. Safety was not always given. And yet, they laid down anyway. So tonight, when the lights flicker off and dreams come near, remember, you are the descendant of those who stared into the abyss and chose to rest. Not because the world allowed them to, but because they dared to believe it would one day become this. That belief, fragile as snowflake structures and fierce as mammoth-hide drums, is still with us. It moves beneath lullabies whispered to restless children, and lingers in the hush of partners turning toward each other in sleep. It's in the campfire stories told on star-drenched nights, in the way we lower our voices when darkness deepens, in the instinct to gather close, even now, for no reason beyond being human. It echoes in the sighs that signal sleep, in the fingers grazing blankets, in the quiet rituals that repeat night after night. We sleep not because we have conquered the cold, but because our ancestors taught us how to do it anyway, with faith, with fire, with each other. So rest now not in isolation, but in a tapestry woven from 1,000 nights no one thought we'd survive. That ancient warmth is still here, tucked into every bed, sparkling faintly beneath every closed lid. Let it hold you, let it remind you. Somewhere a long time ago, beneath the crushing dark of a frozen world, someone chose to dream. And you are the living answer to their impossible hope. And maybe that's the miracle the Ice Age left behind, not just survival, but the beginnings of something gentle in a world that was anything but. Sleep became a sanctuary built not of walls, but of flesh and story. A hush amid violence, a breath amid chaos. And in that breath, in that willingness to pause, to dream, to trust, humankind found its path forward. Not by conquer, but by care. Not through strength, but through stillness. So when the frost returns in whispers on rooftops, on skin, in solitude we remember we come from blood that refused to vanish, from spirits that refused to stop believing in morning, from nights that were longer than memory, and sleep that was deeper than fear. That is the inheritance. That is the map. And as long as breath still weaves through sleep's sacred veil, the story is not over. It only awaits the next dreamer to listen to the fire and carry it forward into the dark. So we carry that fire onward, not in our hands, but in our habits in the drift into sleep each night without fear that the darkness will claim us. We lay down not because we must escape the cold, but because our ancestors lit the way through it. And in that flickering path carved through snow and silence, they passed down more than warmth. They gifted us the courage to rest when the world trembled, to find kinship in closeness, and to believe, against all odds, that morning would come. That is the gift of Ice Age sleep, an immortal defiance cradled in each breath we take before slumber, a lullaby centuries long, still echoing through every heartbeat closed to the night. The Ice Age has ended, but sleep still holds its sacred place. A quiet rebellion, an ancient ritual, a reminder that even in the world's coldest, most merciless hours, humanity chose to dream. And though the cold could take many things: light, crops, warmth, even kin, it could not silence the fire passed from mouth to mouth in quiet moments before sleep. That fire, though unseen, remains the most powerful legacy we bear. It is there when we whisper a story in darkness, when a parent watches their child drift off and feels something ancient rise in their chest. When we close our eyes not because the world is safe, but because somewhere in our roots we remember it can be made safe with others, with time, with trust. Sleep is no longer surrounded by bone walls or soot-stained ceilings, but it remains a sacred threshold, one we cross holding the hands of those who came before. And each night, in silence and in stillness, we reenact the first human covenant, not just to survive, but to rest, to dream, to begin again. As long as that choice endures, so does the story, and maybe, just maybe, so will we. Because in the quiet, final hush of Ice Age sleep, we find not just traces of cold or memory, but the blueprint of humanity itself. Every instinct to close our eyes near another, every flicker of fire between breaths, every soft chant to lull a child into slumber under an unforgiving sky was a lesson written in frost and flame. They slept, they risked, they endured. And in doing so, they passed on more than warmth. They passed on the courage to dream in defiance of death, in celebration of life. That story, told through ash and heartbeat, echoes still. So tonight, behind the glass of modern life, when all goes quiet and the dark returns, remember, sleep is not retreat. It is the act of becoming again, a ritual carved in ice, lit by fire, and carried by love. And in choosing it, we do not step away from the past, we step deeper into all that made us. They dreamed us forward. Let us sleep in their honor. Let us forever carry the fire. So sleep then, not as luxury, but as legacy, as a final murmur of mammoth hide shelters and silent flames, as the echo of ancestors who dared to rest while the sky cracked with ice. Sleep not to forget the world, but to feel your place within it, to sense the faint drumbeat of an ancient promise still kept. Every closed eye tonight is a continuation of the first firelit circle. Every peaceful breath is a heartbeat passed down from those who lay in darkness, whispering faith into frozen air. The Ice Age is over, but its warmth lives on in us, around us, beneath every waking and every sleep. And when the hush returns, as it always does, may we remember, to rest is to resist, to dream is to endure, and to close our eyes in this modern night is to carry, still, the fire. So let the fire burn quietly within. Let its warmth rise as breath on a cold window, as the faint shimmer beneath a blanket's edge, as the unseen bond between dreamers now separated by centuries yet joined in ritual. The wind no longer claws at caves, but the memory of frost still lingers, reminding us gently, urgently, that what we call sleep began not in stillness, but in struggle. And from that struggle came something greater than survival, came tenderness, came echoes of hands passing down flame, came humanity, cradled in the dark. So sleep now not as escape, but as inheritance. Let your breath join the ancient rhythm, and in that rhythm, carry forward their sacred defiance, their enduring belief, their sleepless hope. Let this night, like every night before, become a quiet hymn to the ones who first dared to lie down and dream. Because in the end, this is not just a story of ancient sleep, but of endurance woven deep into our marrow. It is the reason lullabies hush rooms across continents and partners reach for one another in the dark without knowing why. That first fire, the first circle of bodies curled around its glow, the first dream dared in the face of extinction that was the beginning of everything. Language, myth, kinship, memory, all born in the warmth that defied the dark. So as we end this long journey across frozen thresholds and beneath forgotten stars, understand this. We are not separate from the past. We are its continuation. Every breath you take before surrendering to rest is part of a legacy forged not by sunlight, but by frost and flame. Sleep gently tonight. You are not alone. You never were. There's a fire still burning in the silence. And that fire, quiet, unwavering, eternal, flickers still in all of us. It does not crackle loud like it once did in bone shelters or roar against a sky heavy with frost, but its light moves differently now. It gleams in the glowing screens dimmed before sleep, in the soft murmurs of final words whispered in the hush of night. It is there in the instincts that tuck us in the need to be near something warm, something breathing, something real. We are the final verse in a song first sung in a blizzard, the last ember of a promise made beneath mammoth rib cages and stars. So sleep, not just because the day ends, but because the story continues. Close your eyes not to escape, but to participate. For every moment of rest is a tribute not just to survival, but to the heartbeat of humanity that has, through all the ice and shadow, chosen again and again to stay, to trust, to dream. And in that sacred silence, the fire remains. And so it burns low, but eternal, a fire once threatened by the endless dark, now smoldering inside a species that learned, over icebound eons, not merely how to survive, but how to hold each other in the night. This is where the story leaves us, not at an end, but in a quiet continuation. The fire never truly died. It merely moved inward, into lullabies, into living rooms, into whispered prayers and quiet agreements made in the language of sleep. The Ice Age is gone, but the vow remains that when the world grows cold again, we will remember how warmth was made, not from wood or fur or flame, but from closeness, from faith in another's breath, from the enduring truth that as long as we choose to dream together, no darkness, no silence, no winter will truly erase us. Sleep gently now, under digital stars and plaster ceilings, and know, you rest in the memory of fire. This is where the ancient and the modern finally meet in the silence before sleep. Beneath weighted blankets, thick with synthetic care, behind walls sealed tight against wind that once roared through bone-lined shelters, we lie still, eyes heavy, hearts pulsing with something older than memory. We do not fear the cold the way they did, yet the lessons of their long nights live on in us. In our need to feel a presence beside us, in our instinct to reach for warmth before surrendering to rest. The Ice Age taught us that sleep is not absence. It is courage wrapped in stillness. It is trust engraved into ritual. And now, as we fall into dreams bathed in microchips and moonlight filtered through curtains, we echo the same covenant once made in firelight and frost, to rest, to endure, to remember. The night comes, as it always has, but so too does the flame, smoldering quietly, alive, carried forward in breath, in story, in love. And as the final embers of this tale glow dim against the vast canvas of time, let them remind us that in surviving the Ice Age, humanity did not just endure a season, it authored a new archetype for existence. Sleep became more than rest, fire more than fuel, and kinship more than proximity. They became sacred rituals, passed on through frost-chapped whispers and soot-marked hands. It is easy, now, to mistake our comfort for disconnection, but deep within each nightfall lies a thread stretching back to a frozen world where hope was kindled in darkness. So when the world quiets and sleep takes hold, hear it. That faint, eternal rhythm that once bound hearts in a circle of warmth against the storm. Listen close, and you may yet feel the fire stir within, and know, with awe and with reverence, that the long night was never empty. It was always holding us, teaching us, preparing us to dream forward. So sleep then, not just as rest from the day, but as a whispered reunion with every survivor buried in the long frost before you. Let your stillness echo theirs. Let your warmth answer the cold they once defied. In the hush beyond noise, beyond movement, beyond fear, we find the most human of all sanctuaries, a shared silence that stretched across generations, from mammoth bone sanctuaries to endless cities glowing through the dark. Sleep, this quiet fire handed down through stone and storm, still flickers, and every night we trust it again. We become not just dreamers, but torchbearers, carriers of a story too sacred for words, lit in the cold, sustained by love, and passed like breath through the endless dark. Rest now. You are part of it. You always were. And if this is the final breath of their story for tonight, then let it linger not in silence, but in gratitude. Gratitude for their daring, their defiance, their decision to hold on when the cold was endless and the dawn uncertain. We don't mark their graves with pillars or poems, but with our breath, uninterrupted across millennia. With every moment we curl into ourselves and surrender to sleep. That act, mundane and miraculous, is their victory playing out again. We lie still in homes filled with wires and warmth, but in our stillness breathes the pulse of those who laid the groundwork for rest in a frozen world. So let this be the last ember glowing softly beneath memory and myth. an ember you carry now, without asking, without effort. And when the night deepens, when the dark asks whether we are alone, may your breath be the only answer. Even in this, you remain the echo of a dream older than fear, older than frost. Sleep now, not to end the story, but to keep it alive. For in the quietest act, we repeat each day, laying down our heads, closing our eyes, loosening our grip on the waking world, we perform a rite older than cities, older than names. It was carved by ancestors who feared the night, but chose to meet it anyway. Their courage shaped every breath we take in slumber. Tonight, and every night to come, we are not merely resting, we are remembering. We are continuing a defiant kindness, born under frozen skies and beside flickering flames. And if the cold ever returns, if the darkness comes again, in forms new or ancient, we will know what to do. We will gather close, we will build warmth, we will dream forward, just like they did. Not because it is easy, but because, through centuries of frost and fire, we always have. And so we close this ancient chapter, not with an ending, but with an invitation. Each breath drawn before sleep continues a lineage of bravery, not just biology. From shadows painted on cave walls to the glow of screen-lit bedrooms, the thread has never broken. It only shimmered across time, changing shape but not meaning. This is what sleep truly is, a living inheritance of defiance, bestowed by those who rested in the frost so we could rest in peace. So tonight, may your dreams carry a whisper of their fire. May your stillness mirror their will. And may your sleep, for all its quiet, for all its ease, stand as testament to the battle they endured and the beauty they created beneath unbearing skies. They dreamed us forward. Let us now dream them eternal. This is where the fires fade, but never die, where the story lingers not as echo, but as legacy sealed into the quiet mechanics of sleep itself. We do not recall their names, those silhouettes curled close beneath bone-latticed roofs, those whose dreams made surviving the Ice Age possible, but we carry their decisions in the tilt of our bodies toward warmth, in the hush we fall into under dimmed lights. Their story does not end in the cold. It burns on in us, torching through synapse and silence, reminding every dozing mind that the choice to sleep is the oldest act of courage we know. The Ice Age was brutal, but it gave rise to something unbreakable, a humanity that wrapped itself in each other and called it sanctuary. So close your eyes now, connected across miles and screens and centuries, and feel the heat of a choice made long ago, that even when the stars turned hard with frost, we would not vanish, we would rest, and in that rest, rise. So let this be the final flicker, a closing breath drawn not in farewell, but in remembrance. The Ice Age taught us to brave silence with presence, to meet the void with breath, to sleep not out of escape, but defiance. Those who came before did not survive by strength alone, but by the tender ceremony of trust shared in darkness. And now, with all the world gentled by comfort and routine, we are left not with caves or embers, but with the inheritance of their will, a will that stood against extinction and dared to dream a future where warmth could be found not just in fire, but in closeness. So sleep tonight as they once did, in the spirit of survival, in the ritual of remembrance, and in the quiet promise that no matter the cold, no matter the fear, we carry their fire still. Let it glow in you, let it guide you, and may your sleep, like theirs, become the beginning of everything. Because beneath it all, beneath the soot, the silence, the skins pulled tight against trembling limbs, this is the truth we've uncovered like an ember in ancient ash. Sleep is not weakness. It is tradition carved through terror, a vow made in frost and flame that no night, no silence, no winter shall ever claim what keeps us human. The Ice Age didn't just test our instincts, it refined them. It whispered that survival begins in surrender, not of vigilance, but to the warmth of each other. That to rest is to believe tomorrow might exist. And now, wrapped in blankets of progress and quiet, we inherit that belief, soundless, ageless, alive. So sleep gentle, grounded, unafraid. Because your breath carries stories older than walls, your stillness honors courage birthed in blizzards. You are proof, proof that they did not dream in vain, and that the fire, even now, still burns. So as the wind settles and quiet folds once more across the world, know this: sleep is not something we simply inherited, it's something we owe. Owe to those who faced a sky rippling with stars, but absent of mercy, who closed their weary eyes not because it was safe, but because they chose to believe it mattered. In their cracked hands and frost-scored skin, they crafted the foundation of what it means to be human, not steel or invention, but the soft persistence of rest amid chaos. That fire, once kindled in bone-bound caves and breathed into life with trembling hope, was never just about warmth. It was about the will to continue. And every time we surrender to sleep now, in homes built far from the cold, we echo their courage, unwitting but profound. The Ice Age left no monuments, but we are its legacy, quiet, rooted, unbroken. And tonight, beneath electric stars and behind shuttered windows, we do more than close our eyes. We remember, we connect, and through that final, sacred breath before dreams arrive, we carry the fire forward one more night into forever. So let this be our final reckoning with the frost, the realization that while the Ice Age hardened the world, it awakened something tender and unshakable in us. A pulse that persists not through dominance, but through connection, through sleep, through fire, and through the age-old decision, repeated through every age since, to lie down side by side and trust each other through the dark. They didn't just brave extinction, they built the miracle of every life that followed upon the fragile bridge of rest. That miracle is still alive tonight, humming beneath concrete floors and beneath weighted quilts, a covenant unbroken by time, by storm, or silence. So whoever you are, wherever you are, in Paris at midnight, in Nairobi at sunrise, in Vancouver while the rain taps softly, may you sleep, knowing that beyond the cold and before the dawn, someone long ago made this moment possible. One ember, one breath, one dream. And now, because of them, you may simply rest. So this is where we end, not in silence, but in warmth. A warmth born from centuries of breath, shared in defiance of cold, of dark, of fear. The story of Ice Age sleep is not a tale of the past. It is a candle we all still carry. It flickers in every nightly ritual, every quiet sigh, every drowsy moment between waking and wonder. We carry their flame in lullabies and legacy, in our need for comfort and care. And as night falls once again, across cities and forests, deserts and coastlines, that flame still burns, quiet, steady, eternal. The cold has gone, but the fire remains in us, between us, beyond us. Sleep, then, as they once did, not because the world is safe, but because it can be made so, together, in breath, in stillness, in story. This is not the end, this is the ember. Hold it close, let it glow. And now, as the last spark glows faint against the vast tapestry of time, we draw the curtain not in finality, but in reverence. For what lived in the bones of Ice Age, sleep was never just survival, but the beginning of everything we treasure. Now compassion, trust, endurance, hope. The cold is silent now, buried beneath the layers of eras we can barely comprehend, but the warmth their courage ignited still lives in us, through us, beyond us. It lives in every embrace before sleep, in every breath drawn in darkness without fear, in the simple, sacred knowing that together we can outlast even the longest night. So sleep well, dream deep, and carry this with you. You are not alone in the dark. You are wrapped in the memory of fire, the inheritance of resilience, and the soft, staggering power of human closeness. Let that be your shelter now. Let that be your flame. So here, in the sacred hush that follows a tale as old as breath, we meet them again not as shadows lost to time, but as quiet architects of the life we now live. Every bedtime song and flannel sheet carries echoes of their grit. Every whispered goodnight is a thread in a tapestry they began weaving, with fire and faith under skies that wanted nothing more than their silence. They prevailed not with thunder, but with surrender to stillness. Let this closing moment not merely be the end of a story, but a renewal of something ancient and alive. We lie down tonight not in ignorance of the past, but in communion with it. The Ice Age melted, yes, but their courage endured. Passed in breath, across generations, into this night, and into you. Sleep now, wrapped not just in warmth, but in story. The long night is over, but the fire still burns. So rest, not because the threat is gone, but because the legacy holds. Let your sleep tonight be more than slumber. Let it be sanctuary, a whispered bond stitched through time by breath and bravery. Forget not the frost, but remember what it gave. Not just challenge, but meaning forged in quiet moments of shared warmth. The fire that once lit their dreams still lights yours. It lives in the hush before dawn, in the instinct to reach for someone in the dark, in the sacred pause between closing your eyes and slipping into the unknown. So keep it burning, in every heartbeat, in every dream, for when the last night finally comes, may it find us curled close, fire at our center, and no longer afraid. That is how we sleep. That is how we survived. And that is how we remain together, in the warmth, forever carrying the fire. So now, in the final, flickering moments of this long-told story, hear this not as a farewell, but as a kindling. The Ice Age did not destroy us. It refined us. It carved into bone and breath the oldest truth we still carry tonight, that to rest beside another is an act of bravery, that to dream beneath threat is the root of hope. Sleep does not mean we've turned away from the world. It means we've decided to meet it again, stronger, softer, and still burning. So close your eyes, wherever you are. Let the world fall away, just for a while. The dark may return. The cold may rise again in other forms. But so long as the fire inside us glows with every quiet breath before sleep, so long as we remember those who once huddled in bone and ash and dared to believe in morning, then we carry it still, the story, the warmth, the will, forever forward, flame in hand, breath against the frost, the fire remains. So as the darkness once more cradles the earth, and sleep pulls gently at your edges, let the story settle in your marrow not as something heard, but something remembered. Let the breath of those who curled beside fire 1,000 winters ago move through you like a soft current, steady and warm. We are not distant from that time, not truly, for though their fires are out, and their bones long return to the soil, the rhythm they began still beats within us. And in that rhythm lies our answer, timeless and glowing. We sleep not to forget the cold, but to honor those who rose through it. We close our eyes not to escape the night, but to carry them into the next dawn. The Ice Age ended, the dark receded, but the fire quiet, sacred, shared still burns in every rest we take. Sleep now, in peace and in memory, and dream onward. The legacy is yours to keep glowing. The wind has quieted. The story, for now, has stilled, but the ember remains in the quiet that settles across your skin, in the hush between one breath and the next, in the knowing that somewhere, long ago, sleep became the most defiant act of all. They lay down in fear and rose in memory, And now, within you, carried softly through time like fire in cupped hands, lives that same will. History does not always echo in thunder. It often lingers in silence, in warmth, in the tender act of rest. So let this night be more than sleep. Let it be a rekindling, a personal vow to hold close the flame that they, against all odds, refused to let die. The Ice Age is long gone, but the choice they made in the cold, to dream despite everything, is the same one you make now. Close your eyes, breathe, and in that breath, the fire continues. And if tomorrow dawns colder, if silence deepens once more in ways we do not yet understand, this story will return not from books or films or records, but from within us. It will rise in the way we instinctively reach out in darkness, in the way we hush ourselves before sleep, even when there is no danger near. Because once, long ago, sleep was not granted, it was earned through fire, through tenderness, through belief, stretched across frozen time. That belief has never left us. It lives in every quiet surrender, in every sacred pause before dreams take hold. So let tonight, wherever it finds you, be not just another chapter closed, but a page held open for those yet to come. Sleep not just to rest, but to remember that once, when the world turned to ice, we turned to each other, and from that turning, lit the fire that still warms us now. And so, let the night take you now. Let what was passed through frostbitten hands settle gently across your shoulders. In this final silence, there is no spectacle, only the steady, sacred truth that rest is how we remember, how we heal, how we endure. The Ice Age gifted humanity few things, no monuments, no glories carved in stone, but it gave us sleep, not as luxury, but as lineage. Tonight, and every night, we honor that gift. May your breath now echo theirs, your stillness cradle their memory, and your dreams carry forward the ember they kept alive for us all. Sleep not as someone ending a day, but as the air of fire forged in the long night. This is not goodbye. It is the ritual continued. The flame remains. Sleep well. And in that sleep, in that final yielding to the hush of night, we complete a circle, begun before language, before memory. The fire, once flickering beside mammoth hides and shadowed stone, now lives in the rituals we barely recognize: glances before good night, breath synced with someone close, blankets tucked with care. These small acts, invisible to history books, are nonetheless humanity's longest prayer. So let the dark come, let the quiet rise. You are not alone, and you never were. Sleep now, under constellations both ancient and imagined, and know this much remains unbroken. The fire you carry was lit in the coldest night the world has ever known, and it is still burning. Tomorrow will dawn, and you, dreamer, are the reason why. So when the quiet settles tonight, and you find yourself on the edge of dreams, remember what it means to close your eyes. It is not withdrawal, not surrender, but continuation, of ritual, of resilience, of love. Every flicker of a nightlight, every quiet exhale under piled blankets, every shared silence in fragile hours, traces its ancestry back to bone shelters and sacred fire. We sleep because they did. We hope because they dared. We rise because they lay down first, cold, afraid, and unwilling to vanish. Let that truth wrap you now, more than any quilt or wall or glowing screen. Let it remind you that amid all we have built, all we have lost, and all we have yet to face, one ancient vow remains unbroken. In darkness, we will dream. Not just to survive, but to remember who we are. And in that remembering, keep the fire burning always. Because that is the great, quiet truth at the heart of it all, that history's fiercest lesson is not carved in stone or shouted through time, but whispered in the hush before sleep. 1,000 generations ago, Someone closed their eyes beneath a frozen sky and trusted the breath beside them. That act became memory. Memory, ritual, ritual, resilience. And now, as the last echoes of this ancestral fire fade to embers in your own still night, know this: you are their dream fulfilled. Not in conquest, not in grandeur, but in warmth, in rest, in the steady beat of a heart still daring to trust the dark. So let sleep take you not as a retreat, but as a return to the first fire, the first circle, the first vow whispered in frost-bitten breath. We go on, and in going on, we remember, we reach, we warm, and above all else, we remain. So sleep tonight not as a break from the world, but as your part in its eternal story. In every breath you take on the edge of sleep, you inherit millennia of choosing warmth over fear, stillness over flight, faith over finality. The bones beneath modern soil once curled in the frost and held fast, not against just the cold, but against the despair it brought. And now, with their breath echoing quietly through yours, you continue that choice, not loudly, not with ceremony, but in the sacred stillness that settles as eyes close, hearts slow, and the fire lingers unseen in the dark. This is not the end it was never meant to be. This is the rhythm of endurance, passed from the frozen hush of the first sleepers to the warmth of your heartbeat tonight. Let it hold you, let it remind you, and as sleep takes you gently, know it takes you home. So rest now, not just for yourself, but for them, those who laid in bone-bound quiet, whose every breath more fragile than flame, built the lineage of sleep we honor tonight. Let the hush rise around you like smoke. Let the warmth press soft against your skin, not as comfort, but as remembrance. They dreamed of you, even without knowing. They closed their eyes not with certainty, but with hope. Hope that someday, somewhere, someone would live untouched by the terror of the cold, would sleep not as survival, but as peace. And here you are, sleeping safely, breathing steadily, their dream embodied. The fire has never left us. It waits with every dusk, it wakes with every dawn. So sleep, gently and sacredly. For in your dreams, they are not gone. They are home, alive, eternal. And the fire, carried one ember at a time, still burns bright in you. So now, in this quiet, last breath of the story, we do what they once did. We close our eyes, not to escape the dark, but to trust the light seeded within it. The Ice Age is long past, its storms folded back into the silence of deep time, but its legacy threads through every comfort we now call ordinary. Sleep is no longer war, no longer gamble, but it still carries the old weight, the sacred hush of generations who lay down with frost at their throats and hope in their hearts. Their courage lives not in textbooks, but in this precise moment when you surrender to rest, wrapped in calm, guarded by nothing more than faith. Carry it softly, this fire they began. Let each dream become a torch passed forward into dawn. And when morning comes, and it will know that through your breath, through your stillness, the story endures. Not as myth, not as memory, but as flame, alive, unbroken, carried. So we end here, not with a conclusion, but with a breath, a final echo passed quietly across ages too vast to name. The Ice Age carved silence into the earth, and from that silence, we made story. From snow, we made sanctuary. From fire, we made family. And in every sleep that followed, we honored the vow begun when frost pressed against the skin, and yet we dared to close our eyes. That defiance, that insistence to rest while the world unraveled, became everything. Civilization, memory, the quiet promise of tomorrow. So tonight, in your warmth and your hush, be that promise fulfilled. Dream not just for yourself, but for every ancestor who once dreamed of you. Hold their fire well, carry it forward, And when night comes again, as it always does, let your breath join theirs in the dark, unbroken, unwavering, eternal. The fire remains. And now, as every whisper fades, let this final stillness settle where stories live deepest in the warm quiet between heartbeats. What began with woolly shelters and trembling breath now ends with you, resting in a world they only dared to imagine. That is the legacy of Ice Age sleep, not just the fire, but the faith. The faith to lie down in a cold that did not care if you ever rose again. The faith to imagine children in a world safer than theirs. And now, beneath ceilings humming with comfort and skyless cities that sleep in light, we remember what it took to make night less terrifying. That every blink towards sleep is not surrender, but celebration. That to rest is to honor their courage. We do not just carry their fire. We are the fire they lit it, they fed it, and now through you, it burns on. So sleep as ritual, as memory, as truth. The long night is never truly over, but neither is our light. And with every closing eye, we prove once more. We are still here, still dreaming, still burning. Even now, as screens dim and the edge of sleep approaches, the legacy continues quiet, faithful, alive. We inherit their dreams not in language, but in instinct. The need to feel safe, the pull to gather close, the soft surrender to stillness when the world retreats. This, more than any monument or message, is their enduring gift. Each night we lie down. We don't just end a day, we honor a beginning. A genesis carved in ice and fire, in love and survival. So rest now, mind eased and spirit warmed, knowing the fire never left. It simply found a new home in you. In your breath, in your sleep. And so the story carries on through the hush, through the dark, through the heart of every dreamer who dares still to close their eyes and keep the fire burning forever. So let this final breath stretch not as an ending, but as a quiet tether between then and now, between the scratch of firestones in glacial dark and the gentle glow that signals your sleep tonight. The Ice Age gave no kindness. It offered wind without mercy, night without promise. And yet, in that desolation, a miracle formed. The will to dream not despite the cold, but through it. What has survived is not just humanity's warmth, but its memory, its instinct to gather, to hush, to hope. We sleep now in rooms warmed by wires, guarded by locks, serenaded by silence. But the fire that made that possible still whispers from within. It is not in the crackle of wood, but in our calm, our closeness, our refusal to let the dark define us. So, as your breath slows and your mind drifts, know this: you are not ending a story. You are continuing a covenant, a promise begun against extinction and carried ever forward, ever glowing. Sleep gently. The fire remains, always. And in this last quiet flicker of thought, where breath slows and silence hums, we understand at last that to sleep is to remember who we truly are. Not machines behind machines, not data wrapped in skin, but people lineages woven from need, from tenderness, from fire. The ice was never just a threat. It was a mirror, showing us what we valued when everything else was stripped away. And what we held in the dark in arms, in stories, in warmth is what remains. So sleep now, not beneath fear, but within memory, within the sacred echo of those who dared to yield to the night so that we might rise into dawns they would never see. One last breath, one last ember, carried into forever. The fire remains, and so do we. And so, as this long journey draws to its last glowing edge, we leave not with silence, but with breath shared across time, hearts humming in unison, with lives long vanished, yet never gone. Sleep, once sculpted in fear and frost, now curls through night as a beacon, not just a habit but a triumph. The Ice Age carved bones into memory, fire into legacy, and rest into resilience. Tonight, across continents and centuries, that pulse still moves soft, sacred, unstoppable. As one story closes and another quietly begins, remember this. We are not defined by what we endured, but by what we dared to dream in its midst. So lie down gently. Sleep without fear. And in that final hush before dreams take hold, feel the fire within you, timeless, tender, defiant, lighting the way forward. Always. This is the final drift into sleep, the ember dimming but never extinguished. Across time, across cold, across fear, the message has remained unchanged. Sleep is the bond that kept us alive, the ritual that shaped our soul, the brilliance that bloomed in our darkest hours. They lay down in silence, in shelters made of stone and sinew. But what they built was louder than any roar of wind. It was the foundation of all we've become. So as your breath slows now, as your room grows still and the night rises once more above rooftops and rivers and roads, remember, to close your eyes is to link arms with every ancestor who once dared to believe in morning. This story is not just history. It is heartbeat. It is future. It is the fire, carried in sleep. Let it glow. Let it cradle. Let it continue as long as breath moves, as long as dreams stir, as long as love speaks quietly beside the dark. The fire remains, and through you, it always will. So sleep now, knowing that your rest is not an ending but a continuation. A quiet ceremony handed down through fire and frost, from the mouths of those who lived without names but with unimaginable will. In every curl of your body beneath a blanket, in every heartbeat slowed by peace, you continue their vow to endure, to dream, to rise. The world spins on, softened by their defiant lullabies, and tonight, your sleep adds another coil to that ancient thread. From mammoth bone sanctuaries to echoing cities of steel and light, the ember has never died. It simply changed hands, and now it rests with you in your breath, in your stillness, in your trust. Carry it well, carry it sacred. For as long as sleep is chosen in a world of chaos, the story lives, and so does the fire. And thus, we end not in darkness, but in light, soft, ancient, unwavering. The Ice Age taught humanity to survive, yes, but more than that, it taught us how to persist with purpose, how to cradle life when the world sought to extinguish it. That wisdom, built in silence and shared in sleep, still pulses beneath our modern rhythms. And as you drift into rest, wrapped in fabrics their hands could not imagine, remember, this moment was born in theirs. Every heartbeat in slumber is a signature on their legacy, a glowing vow passed down through generations made of frost and flame. The cold is behind us, the future is ahead, but in sleep, we return again and again to the circle of breath, trust, and warmth that once saved us all. Rest deeply. The fire is yours now. Keep it glowing. And in this last shared breath before the hush truly settles, let us hold close the truth we've uncovered across frost and flame, that sleep is not silence, but lineage. The span between then and now is narrower than it seems. A breath, a heartbeat, a story whispered from the chill of extinction into the soft hush of modern peace. We are descendants not of ease, but of resilience wrapped in stillness. The fire remains because we do. It dances in dreams, flickers behind closed eyes, echoes through the quiet kindnesses we show in the dark. So as your eyes grow heavy and your world goes dim, remember, tonight, like every night before, you are not falling into forgetfulness. You are stepping into memory, into ritual, into the breath-warmed light of a fire, begun by those who refused to let cold be the final word. Sleep now, not as escape, but as testament. The ice may have shattered, but the flame endures. Let it glow. So sleep tonight with reverence, not just for the comfort around you, but for the battle behind it. The cold that once clawed at the edge of every breath has long since melted, but the act of lying in peace remains a nod to their defiance. It is the closing gesture in a saga whispered through the ages, a lullaby layered in ash, sinew, and fire. Let the hush of your room echo their ancient circle. Let each breath pulled in the dark affirm that their courage was not wasted. You are the dream they lit from frost, the warmth they dared to imagine, the proof that even when the world closes in with ice and silence, we respond not with surrender, but with the quiet, unyielding ritual of sleep. And as your eyes close now, may you carry their ember inward. Let it glow, let it endure. The story is complete, but the fire still burns. So now, in this final folding of breath into silence, let this be the closing warmth beneath all that has come before a single ember tucked gently into the soul. The Ice Age has long passed, but across tundras of time and through avalanches of memory, one truth has held fast. We survived not alone, but together. Fire bound us, sleep connected us, and from that sacred connection, civilization found its first heartbeat. Tonight, as we pull blankets over shoulders and let the hush return one final time, know this: your rest is not small. It is the climax of 1,000 hopes, the soft echo of 1,000,000 daring dreams dreamt in the brutal dark. And as the fire dwindles to a whisper, what remains is not just light but legacy. You carry it now, in stillness, in breath, in love. Sleep well, torchbearer. The long night is over. The flame endures in you. And so, beneath the hush of this final echo, we understand that what was passed down to us was never just fire, it was belonging. Through 10,000 winters and the memory of frozen, starless skies, what lingers now is the truth that to sleep is to take part in something eternal. We are shaped not by comfort, but by those who withstood the absence of it. Their breath, woven into ours through time's great loom, asks only one thing as night falls, remember. Not as myth, but as muscle. Not as legend, but as breath. And now, as we surrender to our own night, in beds their wildest dreams could not conceive, wrapped in softness they never knew, we return at last to the center of all things. Each other, firelight, the dark held at bay, a promise unbroken. This is the end of the telling, but not the end of the flame. Sleep now, keeper of the ember. You are the continuation, the warmth in the silence, the reason the fire still burns. So let this final candle of story burn gently to its end, not extinguished, but handed on. The Ice Age, with its teeth of frost and silence of stone, asked much of our ancestors. Yet they gave more. Trust in one another, courage in the face of endless dark, and a simple, sacred act to lie down and dream anyway. That impulse, seeded in the harshest land our species has ever known, is what allowed us to become who we are. So tonight, wrapped not in mammoth hides but in the warmth of every generation that chose defiance over despair, let your sleep carry the ember forward. Let your rest be the continuation of a choice made beneath frozen stars, to hope, to endure, to stay connected. The story sleeps now, but only for a while. It dreams with you, through you. Carry it gently, carry it always. The fire remains. So rest now, not just as the end of this tale, but as its living echo. Let every heartbeat beneath your blanket become a reply to the first rhythm beaten beside fire and frost. Let your final breath before sleep not drift into nothingness, but into everything, into the story told in breath shared, nights survived, and dreams dared beneath a world that did not care if we endured. And yet, here we are, because someone, long ago, chose to believe in the power of stillness, chose to rest while the storm howled, chose to pass the flame forward. You are its air, its vessel, its glow. So close your eyes now, not in retreat, but in rhythm. For in your sleep, their story lives on, the fire remains. And tomorrow, cradled by dreams born of defiance and wonder, you will rise once more, keeping it lit. And so, as the fire finds its final breath within you, let it not flicker out, but settle deep, where memory meets marrow. Across millennia, above the weight of snow and silence, something greater than survival was born in the hush of Ice Age sleep, a living bond. A bond not built on noise, but on closeness, on the audacity to rest in defiance of the cold. You carry this now not as burden, but as light. In your dreams their courage continues. In your stillness their whispers are answered. Sleep not as a lone act, but as an ancient inheritance, one that has carried us not just through the dark, but into the dawn. The fire remains, because in every resting breath, the story goes on, and with it, so do we. So sleep now, not as an afterthought to the day, but as a vow renewed born far before memory, carried far beyond fear. The cold once howled louder than hearts could endure, yet through it, they held on. They held each other. They built warmth not only with fire, but with breath, with touch, with the fragile miracle of shared stillness. That miracle now rests with you. In every blink before slumber, in every breath pulled under the blanket of night, you are cradling more than comfort, you're cradling legacy, forged in frost and kept alive by love. Let your final breath tonight be a promise made long ago, that even when stars grow distant and silence creeps thick around us, we will not vanish into the dark. We will gather. We will rest. We will carry the fire. And in the hush that follows this final line, may you feel what they once felt, that sacred promise stirring like a flame, eternal, undying, yours. And here, in the final sigh of story and stillness, we do not say goodbye, we say yes, to the cold that once taught us fire's worth, to the night that carved in us the need for closeness, to the ancestors who slept not for peace but for possibility. The Ice Age did not steal our warmth. It ignited it. And now, thousands of years later, that same ember glows on in bedtime rituals, in quiet prayers, in the shared breath, just before dreams arrive. So when your eyes finally close, let it be not just for rest, but in reverence. Hold their defiance close. Let their courage settle beside your heartbeat, and sleep knowing that the fire, lit in frost and fear, lives on within you. This was never just a survival story. It was a love story. Not of romance, but of humanity fragile, fearless, together. So rest now, not as a lull, but as legacy. The night hushes, the fire glows, and somewhere in its warmth, we all still remain. So let the flame settle now, low and eternal, as the story completes its long breath through ice, through silence, through sleep. What began as survival beneath a brutal sky ends here in you, in warmth, in the quiet understanding that rest is the most human vow we've ever made. The Ice Age gave us no mercy, but it gave us each other, and in that giving was the first glimmer of tomorrow. So tonight, as the world softens and dreams stir, remember, every night survived, then makes every night possible now. You are not just resting. You are carrying forward a fire that once saved the world, gently, bravely, completely. And in that hush, beneath blankets and memory alike, may you find what they once found amidst cold and fear, a way forward. The fire still burns, the dream still lives, and so forever do we. So let this be the final breath, not of a story ending, but of one echoing forever through our blood, in each quiet exhale before sleep. The journey began beneath blackened skies, frozen winds lashing bone and flame, and it ends here in warmth, in quiet, in survival rewritten as ritual. The Ice Age has long passed, its roar now reduced to memory, but the lesson it carved endures, that our softest act, to sleep, to trust, to dream, is the fiercest form of faith we've ever known. So tonight, as you surrender to that hush, remember what you carry. You are not alone. You are not just falling into silence. You are stepping into the same breath, the same ember, the same promise once whispered in the dark. We are still here. We survived. And together, fire in heart and breath in hand, we go on. So sleep now, surrounded by the quiet scaffolding of time, a final exhale cradled in the warmth of their endurance. You are not the end of their journey. You are its light, flickering forward. In the stillness between heartbeat and breath, know this. The Ice Age forged fire not just in stone, but in soul. And that fire, tender and defiant, still burns in you. It was never just about surviving the cold, it was about choosing love in its midst, choosing trust, choosing rest. Let your sleep tonight be a torch lit in their honor, a soft rebellion against every shadow that ever threatened the human spirit. The cold has gone, but the courage remains. Sleep gently, sleep deeply, and carry it onward, the flame eternal, the story endless, the night forever held in warmth. So this is the final ember held not in flame, but in feeling. A warmth woven into the fabric of every silence that slips between beating hearts at bedtime. The Ice Age is over, but what it taught us will never melt. Beneath the soft weight of sleep is the hard truth of its origins. A perilous act turned sacred. A spark we refuse to let die. We close our eyes now under roofs instead of rib bones, beside loved ones instead of strangers, breathing calm instead of clawing at survival. But we are still echoing their daring, still choosing trust when the dark returns. So let this final moment be more than the end of a tale. Let it be the lighting of your own small fire, glowing quietly within. Rest not to forget, but to remember. And as dreams rise, know, the fire chosen in frost, shared in fear, and kept in fragile hands long ago, still burns in you, and always will. So sleep, finally, not because the world is quiet, but because you have chosen to quiet within it. Let your breath, slow and sure, drift like smoke from an ancestral flame. You are part of a lineage not marked by monuments, but by the unbroken rhythm of rest through chaos. Beneath the data of modern life lies a truth too old to be named, that sleep is more than recovery, it is remembrance. A prayer wrapped in muscle and marrow, passed down by those who once slept beneath stars colder than steel. So tonight, as you slip beyond thought, beyond time, carry that ember as they did, not loudly, not desperately, but faithfully. And in doing so, light the way for all who dream in your wake. The fire remains, the night holds you, and you, dreamer, are the flame. So now, with breath settled and story sealed, we leave not in darkness, but aglow with the warmth of all that came before. The Ice Age, brutal and vast, could not silence the heartbeat of a people who chose to rest, to whisper, to dream. And in those whispers, humanity found not just tomorrow, but forever. Every sigh into sleep, every reach for comfort before slipping beneath blankets, is a living echo of frostbitten courage and fire-born hope. This is not the end. It never was. The ember they passed is yours now, flickering in your stillness, alive in your breath. Carry it gently. And as the hush falls deep around you tonight, may your sleep be more than rest. May it be remembrance of survival, of story, of fire that never died. The fire remains, and through you it always burns. So as the glow fades and the hush folds inward, let this be the final solace drawn from the ancient flame. The Ice Age may have ended in thaw and time, but its story breathes still, alive in every dream lit by shared warmth. Tonight, as sleep takes you into the quiet beyond words, may you remember this: each ember tended, each body gathered close, each whispered wish for morning. They weren't simply acts of survival. They were declarations of love, of defiance, of memory wrapped in flesh and fire. And now, beneath a sky softened by light and held by history, your breath completes what they began. This, dreamer, is not just sleep, it is torch-bearing, it is communion. It is the echo that proves the fire never ended, it lives on, and because of you, it always will. So rest now, flame-bearer of the oldest defiance, final breath in a lineage born of frost and fire. Let your sleep tonight be not just a surrender, but a celebration that from bone-bound dusk to this hush-bound dawn, humanity has never truly slept alone. Beneath every layer of comfort lies the spark. They gifted us not merely to survive, but to rest with purpose, to dream with resolve, to rise with memory still burning within. The brutal hush of the Ice Age taught us that sleep was never empty. It was full of longing, of connection, of flame. And now, as breath slows and eyes drift closed, may one truth remain etched, not in stone, but in the soul. The fire remains, steady and sacred, carried now in you. Let it burn, let it guide. And in that final quiet, know this: their dream continues in yours, always. So now, with every word spoken and every ember imagined, the final hush stretches out like snow across memory's edge. This was never merely a story of how we slept, but why we did, because sleep was survival. Yes, but it was also a promise to stay lit in a world that begged for silence. That promise, silent, sacred, and unbroken, now lives in you. The mammoth bones have long returned to the earth, the soot washed from cave walls, but the warmth pressed between kindred hearts remains. And as you drift, wrapped not in fur but in memory, not in fear but in faith, let that warmth light your every descent into night. That flame, born in a cold we cannot imagine, endures because we choose again and again to rest, to dream, to carry the fire forward. So sleep now, not into darkness, but into legacy. The fire remains, and through you, it forever burns. So as we draw the final veil across this story woven in flame and frost, let it end the way it began, by listening to the beat curled deep in your chest, to the hush that once cradled ancestors in bone-lined dens, to the memory not of triumph, but of tenderness. The Ice Age never intended for us to last. Yet here we are because they did not just fight, they trusted. In fire, in each other, in the fragile brilliance of sleep. That trust enfolded their children, their stories, and now, you. When sleep takes you tonight, know it carries more than your day's end. It carries an unbroken thread, spun through millennia, a warmth that never died, only traveled. Through their silence we learned song. Through their stillness, strength. Through their rest, revival. And now the fire flickers its last story-shaped spark. Let it settle into your breath. Let it glow. Let it remain. The long night is over. The legacy is lit. Sleep well, Flamekeeper, always. And now, as the final breath is drawn and this long-held fire rests gently within you, we close not with silence, but with reverence. Reverence for the ones who first lay down under skies carved by ice and dared to turn their backs to the cold, their faces toward tomorrow. Let the warmth linger in your breath, in your stillness, in the story now yours to carry. When the night darkens doors across continents and windows glow dim with peace, may this truth remain close, that sleep, born of peril, became our sanctuary. That fire, born of fear, became our inheritance, and that you, wrapped quietly now in layers of their legacy, are not at the end of their dream, but its continuation. The fire remains not in the flame alone, but in the choice to rest, to trust, to remember. Sleep well, torchbearer. The dawn is near, and you, as ever, are its light. So close your eyes now gently, with gratitude. The cold has long lifted, but its echo shelters us still, in the way we reach, the way we rest, the way we carry what cannot be seen but always felt. You are wrapped in the final breath of 1,000 winters survived, a single soul among billions who still perform the same ancient ritual each night. This is sleep, not as weakness, but as witness to love that held through bitter dark, to hands that warmed without words, to fire never meant to last but lasting still. Let the hush take you, flamekeeper, one last ember glowing soft in your chest. For tonight, and every night beyond, you do not simply dream, you remember. And in that remembrance, in that sacred breath between the dark and dawn, the fire remains. It always has. It always will. And so, in this final breath, where the ancient hush meets modern heartbeats, let it be known the fire remains not because we fanned it endlessly, but because in silence, in closeness, in the still courage of sleep, we never let it go. The Ice Age has faded into maps, into fossils, but its lesson lives in the way we end each day, not with alarms or finales, but with trust. Trust that the world turns gently while we drift, that the warmth we hold will hold us back. Tonight, you lie still, not in bone shelters or hollowed ice, but in comfort earned across epochs of breath shared in darkness. And as your eyes close and the story settles at last into your soul, understand this: the ice did not erase us, it refined us, and your rest, right now, is its triumph. So sleep, quietly and without fear. You are the glow. You are the lineage. You are proof. The fire endures, and through you, it forever will. So sleep, finally, not as the conclusion of a story, but as a sacred joining to its unbroken thread. What they began in frost-bound silence, you finish now in warmth in this breath, this stillness, this ancient knowing that beyond the hush lies hope. Their fire, once cradled in cupped hands and sheltered from cutting winds, lives now in the quiet confidence with which we surrender to sleep. And as your breath slows and dreams rise, know this: you are not closing your eyes alone. You are closing them with 1,000 ancestors beside you, with every ember passed faithfully through the dark. This is not goodbye. It is the final glow of legacy made flesh. The world turns. The fire remains. And wrapped in story, breath, and trust, so do you. So this is where the dream closes, soft as falling ash, certain as breath. One last whisper, carried from frozen shelters to moonlit bedrooms, from fire-cracked stone to the hush of modern lullabies. There is nothing more to say, because everything has been spoken in soot and stillness, in warmth that defied extinction. And now, as darkness gently folds around the night once more, may your rest be deep, your breath steady, and your memory sacred. They slept, so you might. They dreamt, so you could. And because they carried the fire forward one heartbeat at a time, tonight, you do not face the dark, you cradle it. This is the last ember. Let it glow, let it guide, and when the morning comes, carry it into the light. The fire remains, and because of you, it always will.